Hi there. Now let's read lesson 323. I gladly make the sacrifice of fear. Yes, let's just sacrifice. Let's crucify fear once and for all. Let's be done with that. When I had my 4-year adventure with my son, when he was going through the drug use that he was so into at the time, I had to sacrifice my fear. I was fearing that he was going to die or that he was going to end up hurting himself to the point that he would not be able to function, or that he would get in an accident because he was high driving and would hurt himself. I did not know what could possibly happen, but I had fears that anything was possible that was going to hurt him. And I had to sacrifice those fears. I had to ask myself, how was that fear changing anything? How was that fear helping me help him? How was that fear doing anything to make me feel better? It wasn't. I had to begin to say, no, I don't want to have fear. I want to be present and clear to hear the voice of God guiding me as to what it was that I needed to do with Spencer while he was doing his drugs. So I had to find my freedom in God alone. I had to go to God and say, what is your will for me? And God's will for me was that I be happy. And I had to ask, well, God, what is your will for Spencer? Was that he be happy. So when I began to get really clear that all I needed to do was sacrifice those fears, let go of those fears, I was hearing guidance that helped me help Spencer move through that journey of his. It took 4 years. And let me say, those were the hardest years of my life. But I stayed steady. I stayed committed to day by day, facing down those fears and not let them be my reality, because I knew that I had to give up what wasn't real. I had to accept what was real, which was the love inside of me, that was the love of God that I needed to extend to Spencer so that he could feel my unconditional love to help him with his healing journey. And boy, did it work. Paragraph number 1. Here is the only sacrifice you ask of your beloved Son. You ask him to give up all suffering, all sense of loss and sadness, all anxiety and doubt, and freely let your love come streaming in to his awareness, healing him of pain and giving him your own eternal joy. Exactly. That is what God gave me. I had to give up my fears. I had to give up my judgments so that I could receive this eternal joy that God had placed in my heart. Such is the sacrifice. I mean, we're giving up the thing that makes us uncomfortable for what makes us peaceful. Isn't that a fabulous sacrifice that anybody would want to make? Let me read this again in sentence number 2, paragraph 1. Such is the sacrifice you ask of me, and one I gladly make, the only cost of restoration of your memory to me for the salvation of the world. The only cost that I was being asked to pay was the giving up of my fears, giving up of my judgments, my sadness, my anger, my anxiety, so that I could feel peace inside of me, so that peace could then activate a sense of well-being in me, that I then had the space in my mind in that quiet to say, God, what would you have me do? See, the mind, if it's busy talking about the anxiety and the what could go wrong, what in spinning a story, there is no room to hear the voice for God. So we've got to quiet the insanity in the mind, but that only happens when you want to sacrifice fear and accept the peace, the love, the joy that is your birthright. So clearly that has to come with a level of knowing our worth. So we're cultivating self-worth. We're cultivating self-love. We're moving to the place that we say, you know what? I deserve peace instead of anxiety. I deserve peace instead of fear. I deserve to be at peace and at ease in my body instead of all anxious and all worried and all tight and tense. So it is a decision that we have to come to, usually once we have had enough contrast of what the ego does compared to what the Holy Spirit does for us, so that we become enticed enough to gladly sacrifice all fears. Paragraph number 2. And as we pay the debt we owe to truth, a debt that merely is the letting go of self-deceptions and of images we worshipped falsely, truth returns to us in wholeness and in joy. Yes, we have to do the work of questioning our thoughts and letting go of what is not true. Society was telling me I should be afraid for my son's life. God was telling me, why would you be afraid for his life when his life is eternal? So God helped me see, the voice for the Holy Spirit, that I was afraid for his body. And when I looked at, well, why am I afraid of his body? Because I made the body real. So that means if I'm focused on the body, I'm not focusing on what is actually real, which is his eternal self. Once I shift my allegiance to his eternal self, I began to realize that I could communicate to it. I could remind it, you are powerful, you're amazing. You are creating your own reality. I could say things in a soft, loving way. Sometimes he didn't want to hear it, but sometimes it's exactly what he needed to hear so that he could begin to question the insanity in his own mind. You know, two of us being insane and anxious and fearful wasn't going to change anything, but one of us, me, had to pull out of that, stand firm for the truth of who I am as God created me, and then call him out of his insanity. That was the only way out for him because I got myself out of my own way first. Sentence number 2 in paragraph 2. We are deceived no longer. Love has now returned to our awareness, and we are at peace again, for fear has gone and only love remains. Yes, I understand that it is hard to get rid of our fears, but it is the only thing that we must get rid of. It's the only thing that we're being asked to sacrifice, because until we let go of our fears, we cannot feel the peace, the love that is right behind those beliefs. And this is a process. It does take time. But the Course in Miracles has given us not only the beautiful text with so much information, but 365 lessons that help us apply this every single day so that we can make our liberation our reality. I just love this. Let me read this again. I gladly make the sacrifice of fear. When I sacrificed fear and I decided to love myself enough so that I could call my son into returning to his own love, changed everything in my life completely. And I know he's alive today because I made that commitment. Thanks a bunch, and I'll see you in the next lesson.